In this video, I regret eating all those chocolate cakes during lockdown. Look at me struggling to get in between the engines there. And then I sail straight into a rock when leaving the anchorage. So this is another video in the long-running saga of how I turned this into a boat. I bought the tube from a second-hand tube supplier and got it delivered to a barn on the top of a hill, and people started calling me Noah. Did it make sense? Was it a logical thing to do? I don't know. But here I am several years later, and the boat's looking really good, and it's getting close to the point where I can do that trip I've always wanted to do. Now, in the standard YouTube mantra, please like, comment, share, subscribe if you like this video. So it's holiday time again. I'd got my leave all booked from work, and I raced across and started getting the boat ready for sea. First quick job was making these scupper covers to stop the water from splashing up the holes there and getting me wet when I'm at sea. Then it was time to get some other bits and pieces done, like welding up some holes here. So I made a couple of holes here a few years ago for one of those little fairlead type things that takes the rope from the furling system. Don't need them anymore, so I'm just welding them up. So this is my little catch can that I'm going to use, so that when I weld the outside, no little bits of weld and stuff drop into the interior and burn the wood and carpet and stuff. Just a can strapped to the roof. What I'll do is on the outside I will do a nice little countersink hole, and then a fairly sort of strongish amount of weld power just to sort of weld into the hole. It won't weld all the way through to the other side of the hull. You'll probably have like a little dip on this side of about 3mm, but I don't really care, it's strong enough, and it's just really just plugging holes. It definitely will never ever leak because it will be a full-on weld on the outside. Finally, with all those little bits and pieces done and little bits of extra paint everywhere, it was time to put her in the water. So this is the Marina's big trailer, which is good for about 15 tons. It's all hydraulic. Pipey only weighs about maximum about 10 tons now, maybe about 9 tons, 9.5 tons. So she's considerably lighter than a Lagoon of same size. A Lagoon glass fiber boat would be around about sort of 12 ton at 38 feet, I think. And the 45s are something like 15, 16 ton bare out the factory, which is quite shocking when you think about it, particularly when they've only got 18mm plywood bulkheads. Pipey doesn't need bulkheads, of course. She's all steel, and the weight and the stress goes through the tube and nicely spreads out throughout the boat, so it can put up with my bad seamanship, hitting rocks and all kinds of things without even a dent, which is quite cool. It's lovely going through the lock for that reason, actually, because you got all these other boats and they're all bumping off of each other and scratching themselves and God knows what, and Pipey's got a nice ring of stainless steel edging all everywhere, so I don't need the only reason I need fenders in the lock or on pontoons is to protect the pontoons and the lock. It's not to protect the boat as such. Can't even scratch it. It's cool. So the trailer actually just supports the main hull and just sits on the main hull, so the outriggers are basically just in balance. This used to worry me and make this quite stressful because, you know, the boat could tilt on the trailer and then you'd have all kinds of problems. But now I've got the keel and it actually locks into a V-plate on the trailer, which is much nicer, makes it much less stressful. But it's always nice, this sort of point when she's touching water and she's safe and off the trailer. After launch, I like to run her straight up the river just to check everything's okay. Well, that's really not what you want to see, is it? That is a real shame. Need some buoyancy tanks or something, and just some plastic bags and fill them full of expanded foam in place. And I suppose it's resting on the mud, so it's not going any deeper, but the engines will be wrecked. The engine, that's the interior. It's a real shame, isn't it? So I took the boat for a nice little trip to Quiberon. Keep on pronouncing it wrong. Yeah, it was a nice little trip that was. Stayed on anchor for about 3 days. Got to play in the dinghy, go snorkeling with a boy. That was fun. Just after anchoring, I thought I'd try and swim down to the anchor It's only about 12 meters down and I can hold my breath for a couple of minutes, but I couldn't quite get down there because I couldn't clear my ears properly. I'd forgotten how to do that. Afterwards, I looked at a YouTube video and I should have used the Frenzel maneuver. That really works for me. I'm snorkeling along here and I'm using one of these full face masks, which is really quite comfortable. It's got a little hanger as well, so you can hang a GoPro on the top of it, which is what I'm using here to take this bit of footage. It's just a really comfortable mask. Swimming along, I found loads of crabs actually. One of them got me, pinched me, hurt my finger. Only a little bit, but this is a nice little chappy. He was quite happy. Nice big tall ship, Frédéric Chopin, named after the composer. That came in, so I had a quick look at that. Skirt round in the dinghy. Now I'm heading back. Not a great deal of wind today, but I've got my standard downwind rig out at the moment, and she's pulling between about 3 and 4 knots. She's just hit 4 knots. The wind's supposed to get up, possibly up quite a bit later, in the next 2-3 hours, so that'll hopefully get me back at some reasonable hour. So I was just contemplating single-handed building and single-handed sailing. It's a bit of a difficult thing to do sometimes. I mean, I don't know any different. I mean, it's all I've ever done. You know, I've always struggled to ask people for favours or ask people to help me. I just don't like doing it. I just find it easier to do it myself. I'm also worried that I'll look an idiot. You know, I ask them to help me do something, and they come along and they start looking at it and going, why is he doing it like that? That's a bit stupid. That's not that I think I do things wrong or anything like that. It's just like to avoid that sort of judgment. Now, I remember reading, what was his name? Chirac. Jacques Chirac. I seem to remember he said something like, wisdom can only come through solitude. I've had a lot of solitude building and sailing. No blimmin' wisdom yet. But the great thing about single-handed sailing really is that there is no bartering of your schedule. There's no agreeing of time, or as that wonderful thing Microsoft Project and all that stuff says. There's no resource booking. You know, it's up to you. The schedule is dictated by the sea, really. But there's no need to have any, agreement on how long something will take or anything like that. It's you and the sea, not you, the sea, and someone else. You know? I remember watching that program by I don't know, I can't remember his name, Christian, but he did a Why We Sail series on YouTube. But some of us sail single-handed because we enjoy the challenge of doing everything ourselves, facing the great unknown alone. Others do it as they struggle to engage socially. And no one would want to spend that much time on a something that's 20 to 40 foot long, stuck at sea with them. I guess for me it's a mixture of those things. So one of the objectives of a trip like this is just to try on different points of sail and try and get an idea of what I need to fix still. And one of the slight problems I've got with the downwind rig, which looks all very nice, but as soon as the wind's slightly off of downwind, as it is on the blue edge sail there, she starts collapsing in. Now obviously on a monohull you'd have poles and stuff, and on trimarans too, to pole out the sail. I've shied away from that because I wanted to use the boat's width and avoid having poles, but I just don't seem to be able to do it. On certain points of sail it just, it's just too fussy. So I've rigged up that mess of ropes there at the moment just to try and see what I need to do, what angle I need that clue of that sail to be at for it to work properly. And it's not that angle there, but it's not far from that angle. So what I can do now is I can get my tape measure, and I can literally run my tape measure from the edge of the sail down to that pole there, and I think I'd run the pole there to there to push it out. Something like that. And then the great thing is those poles then don't come across the deck and don't get in the way. So I can see what the measure is. I probably need a downhaul on the sail, that's the only thing. And then again, I've sort of got a downhaul. Already made one that goes up like that from the little fitting I welded on the deck ages ago. So that, with the pole, should keep the pole where it needs to be. So I could literally have like a little something on that joint there, and then a simple pole going up, just with a hook on the end that just hooks into the clew of the sail and holds it out. Making a pole will be easy enough. In fact, I think I've got an aluminium pole set around. This old scaffold pole is a bit heavy actually. I need something a bit more lightweight than that. Oh, anyhow, and that island over there, that's Ubat. And then Odik, I think I've said that right, Odik, is that one over there, which you can barely see actually, it's just underneath the sail. And then the massive one over there is Belle. And then that's Quiberon in the distance. Port Halligoin somewhere over there, and then over there somewhere is the entrance to the Morbihan. So one little hiccup I had when I left port today, or left the anchorage, that's the Anse Condil I think, is I decided to test my the sailing with the stern drives up. Because obviously with the stern drives up, you're not pulling two 14-inch propellers through the water when you're sailing, and you're going to save a fair amount of drag. So I thought, well, the wind and the current was pushing me off away from the beach, so it'd be a good time to crank the stern drives up and then just sail straight off the mooring. Because it's a little bit difficult at the moment cranking them up. You have to get behind the engines, which is not the easiest or nicest thing to do. So yeah, I cranked them all up, I put one of the sails up and pulled up the anchor, and I promptly drifted across into the only rock in the blooming anchorage. So I hit the bottom of the outrigger on a rock. I might have put a little dent in it or a scratch or something. I mean, she hit with a fair old bang, but it's steel and I've reinforced everything, so we'll see what the damage is later on, but probably just a little scratch and a little dent perhaps, nothing serious. But that's the lovely thing you see about a steel boat, is you can make mistakes. You can do things silly and you're okay, you get away with it most of the time. So I'm a great fan of what Elon Musk is doing. Elon Musk is an interesting character. His concept of time seems to be similar to mine, and that I think something will take 1 hour and it ends up taking 3. But the problem, part of that is that if you really knew how long something would take, would you really want to do it? But once you've done it, then you're quite happy it took that long. So for me, anyhow, there's a slight element of just worrying, just trying to avoid the. Or trying to get myself to do something that perhaps otherwise I wouldn't do if I knew the true cost of it. But no, what Elon Musk is doing is good, because we need to remember something, and that is the human race is currently quite at risk if you think about it. We're on this little insignificant pale blue dot. If you've ever seen the YouTube videos, or it's taken from TV, but the speech by Carl Sagan of the little pale blue dot stuck there in the middle of nowhere. You actually watch it and you start thinking, God, we're all on that little dot. If something destroyed that dot, we're all gone. The only thing left that would sort of prove that we ever existed at all, the only mark we would leave behind, is a few rovers on Mars, the Pioneer spacecraft and the Voyager spacecraft disappearing out. And I suppose Elon Musk's sports car. It's somewhere, I don't know where it is now, somewhere out Mars. I think it's on an elliptical orbit almost extending out to Mars, but But yeah, you think about that and you realise just how at risk we all are. We could very well disappear and the universe would never have any sort of true knowledge, or there'd be nothing really left of any significance that would prove we were ever alive. One thing he's doing is the Starlink project as well, and that looks like it could be really useful for sailing. Because I've got SSB on board that doesn't work at the moment. I need to relink it up. Just make sure I'm not going to run into anyone. There's a lot of people sailing backwards and forwards. But yeah, you get more than sort of 30-40 miles from the coast and you lose your internet signal, your mobile phone signal. VHF starts to die off at line of sight as well. And at the moment, you get out there and if you haven't got a sat phone, you become unreachable. And it's quite an amazing thing, really. I mean, the Starlink project is great, and it will bring an end to the information poverty of those who have, those are outside of the current internet zones and stuff. But it also brings that curse of constant connectivity to us all, which is a bit of a nightmare. I love getting out and being legitimately able to say, I'm out of contact, I'm uncontactable, I won't get any notification buzzes. Mind you, I've turned those off on my phone. I'm quite bad on my phone, I tend to leave it places and let it run out of charge anyway. But nevertheless, you get past that zone and you are truly on your own. You're truly at a point of solitude, at a point of, some would say loneliness, others would say sort of freedom, really. Problem with Starlink is a lot of that will disappear, because essentially you'll be able to have this brilliant signal and super fast internet no matter where you are, in the middle of the ocean or anywhere. As I say, I know some people have already got it with the other various providers, the sat phones, but they've always been so expensive that they're just out of reach. Whereas Starlink might bring that into reach. And those that seek to control us, of course, will be able to reach us with their long screwdrivers and tweak what we're doing and generally interfere with us. But also there's that, quite often we make a cage for ourselves as well. So you have the neurosis of needing to check in, talk to people, get their opinion. And of course, 9 times out of 10, the people you're trying to get an opinion from have really no idea, have all their own sort of own neuroses, and if you try and seek assurance from them, they of course give you the most risk-averse view, because they wouldn't want to be responsible for putting you in harm's way or anything. So it's a brave new world. I'm not particularly sure it's a very nice one. Anyhow, the cool thing is it's Sunday, it's getting into afternoon. I think I'm going to have a cup of tea. I'm up at around about 4 knots at the moment, which is good, so the wind must be coming in, and I think the tide's gone a slightly different way. And pretty soon I'm going to be able to sit here and watch Harley Revival and see how he's getting on with his sugar scoop extension, so that's pretty cool. So you see, sometimes all this internet and everything is useful, I suppose. Because there I am, I'm only about 8 miles offshore, I suppose, 10 miles offshore, but I've still got enough signal that I can watch YouTube and stream direct. Yeah. So the rest of the trip that evening went really nice. I got up to 6-7 knots downwind and entered the Villain just on sunset, which was really nice. It's great to get out to sea and just enjoy the boat. I spend 4 or 5 weeks a year typically sort of working on this boat and struggling on it, and quite often I end up with injuries. I end up stressing myself quite a lot during that time. So to get to the summer period and then actually use the boat as a boat, actually get out to sea and just profit from my labor, it is really nice. The other thing, of course, while being out at sea, is I get to see how the design is progressing, how the capability of the boat is improving, and determine what I've got to do on the next winter in order to make this boat one day ready for something far greater. And this trip really unfortunately demonstrated something that I feared, which was that it's time to look at the mast again. Now the mast runs really nice, it's worked very well all the years it's been up, but it needs to come down for a bit of maintenance. But while it's down, I really need to take a look at the amount of sail area I have. So that will be the task for this winter. Essentially, I'm going to take the mast off, look at how I can extend it, and then also do all the maintenance, like checking the pop rivets on the steps, because they've stainless pop rivets into aluminium and they've been there for 20 plus years, so it would be rather nice to make sure they're still serviceable. So that will be my task for this winter. Of course, I mean the winter of 2021. So by the time this video comes onto YouTube, I've probably already been through most of this work and hopefully I'm in a nice comfortable position where I can look back at my work and smile.